Hey, what's up, y'all? Evan from Flyletter here, showing you the four-stage framework that any business can use to create, amplify, nurture, and grow their business brand. Let's get after it. Pretty much every business that I've seen use their newsletter as an effective growth strategy has used this four-step framework that I call the Flyletter Method. I wrote an article on it. You can check it out at flyletter.io. But in short, the Flyletter Method is a four-stage framework that helps you create, amplify, nurture, and ultimately grow your brand and your business by putting your newsletter at the center of everything. Think of it as the hub with create, amplify, nurture, and grow as the spokes around it. And ultimately, your newsletter is fueling each of those stages. And in turn, each of those stages is fueling your newsletter. And I'll explain here in a second, actually show you a couple examples. But basically, with the newsletter, you are trying to position your brand as an authority in your niche. To do that, you create high value content consistently. As you are consistently creating newsletter content, you can repurpose that newsletter content across all of your social media platforms. So newsletter content's long form enough that you can really repurpose it in a number of ways and come up with like weeks of content, even if you're just running a weekly newsletter. So you're taking your newsletter content, you're amplifying it everywhere by repurposing it across your social media profiles, and you're ultimately driving eyeballs back to that newsletter using a call to action to sign up to receive, more great information. Now, I'll show you in a second. It's important that each of these amplification posts actually stand on their own. So it can't just be like a teaser. It has to really provide value and sometimes maybe even not have a call to action to go back to your newsletter. But just by providing so much good value as people see it, maybe they follow you on social media. Eventually, they're going to want that content direct to their inbox or want that information, want that knowledge directly to their inbox. And so by amplifying your newsletter with these like standalone social media posts that also promote the newsletter, you're really going to be able to build trust with your audience and ultimately drive email subscribers back to your newsletter. As you capture those email subscribers, what you're doing next is just nurturing them. Gary Vee, I think, has a great example of this in his book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, where he basically says you need to give value, give value, give value before you ask for value. And so the reason why this Flyletter method with your newsletter at the center is, I think, so valuable and so critical is that oftentimes your customers are not going to buy from you right away, as you well know. You really need to build trust with them and really build credibility and authority with them so that when they are ready to make a purchase or they, either they've overcome the objections or they didn't need your product or service and now they might, because you've been nurturing them consistently with high value content, you have their contact information, you're having a one-on-one conversation with them, they're going to be much more likely to buy, which leads me to growth. So as you nurture those email subscribers with a high value newsletter, you're going to eventually convert some number of them into customers. Now, the Flyletter method doesn't stop here because what you're trying to do is create a growth loop to get back to create. And because you have to create content really at scale in order for this to work, to drive enough interest and eyeballs, you need to find a wellspring of ideas and information that you can turn into consistent newsletter content that you then repurpose across all your social media profiles, used to nurture and so on and so forth. So ideally, your customers that you are converting are actually helping you create that content. Now, that could be like true user-generated content, like you would imagine like a forum or a social media site. But it doesn't have to be just that. Anything related to a customer testimonial, a new use case that you see your users are using as they come on board, a case study, all these different ways. I mean, even customer interviews, phone calls, recording transcripts, getting their go ahead, and then using those transcripts to create content. I mean, all of this is a wellspring of ideas that actually matter to your ideal audience because they're actually coming from your customer base. So tapping into that is going to help you create that content and scale, which ultimately gets this flywheel going. And that's the Flyletter method. Now, there's a couple brands and people that I think are doing this really, really well. And I want to show you real quick before we jump into like ultimately how to do this. And so Carta is the first one. For those that don't know, Carta essentially helps startups manage their cap table, helps them distribute equity to employees and investors, and then ultimately even pay out that equity. But what Carta does is they put a face to the name. And so they have Peter Walker, who is the head of insights at Carta. Data storytellers is the little tagline. As you see here, they're really using him and his persona to grow the Carta brand. And I'm sure you would agree, like, who cares about Carta, this C, whatever, this brand? But Peter Walker, face to the name, looks like an interesting fellow. Okay, maybe I'm a little more interested now, even if they're saying the same thing or using the same content. And you see here he has 170,000 LinkedIn followers. So very clearly this is working. So because Carta helps startups, what they do is they analyze a lot of their own customer data to provide insights to like the startup ecosystem. So specifically, they're using customer information, using customer data, at least at the high level, obviously not proprietary or sensitive information, but basically using data they have in-house to create these insights that they share through these kind of report style infographic with a little bit of commentary on what you're seeing essentially. Now, because Carta, they have a free tier, but it's kind of a larger, more robust platform. It's more useful and usable when you're at least in a seed stage round, if in a Series A or beyond. So even though people in the startup ecosystem may be interested in the data that they're and insights that they're sharing, they might not all be ready to use Carta. So for that reason, they use their newsletter as their lead magnet, essentially. So you see here very subtly, this is a fully encapsulated post. It provides value, doesn't even have a call to action for their newsletter. But then down here, home of the startup data, carta.com/data. So you come here to carta.com/data and they have their data desk, which is their branded newsletter. And essentially what they do with their branded newsletter is they share insights like this weekly direct to your inbox, and then sometimes share even like big 32, 35, 40 page reports. And so if you want, you can get this directly and you can subscribe. And then of course they capture my email. I start to see these insights right to my inbox weekly. When I start my next company and I need help managing my cap table, of course I'm going to think of Carta. And so that is the Flywheel and the Flyletter Method at work. Another example that I think does it well is company R B2B. And so basically they are a website de-anonymizer tool. So marketing/sales tool, basically. And the CEO is Adam Robinson. And similar to Carta and Peter Walker, Adam is really the face of our B2B and really puts that face to the name, which is something I highly recommend businesses do, right? It's not your business brand necessarily that is providing the commentary. It's a thought leader within your company, whether that's the CEO or your head of insights or whatever. And you see here 150,000 followers on LinkedIn. So it's obviously working. They just provide great free content for their audience based on topics they know their audience is going to be interested in. And, lo and behold, down the line, our B2B can help or whatever it is. And so if you come here, they also have a YouTube channel. And again, it's branded with Adam Robinson, the CEO, not our B2B specifically. And one example would be this: if I started a SaaS in 2026, I'd do this. And you see here that the first call to action is start using our B2B for free. Now, a little different from Carta, they're not saying sign up for our newsletter. However, our B2B has a free tier or a free trial, no credit card required. It's a much lower barrier to entry just to kind of get someone in to check it out. And so I think rightly so, they're just like, hey, just check it out. Now, what they do, however, which I think is really smart, is they also have a newsletter. So when you sign up for our B2B for their free trial or free tier, you are then obviously included on their newsletter. And so whether you end up converting into a paid tier or not, you're now being nurtured with the our B2B brand. And I believe it's written as Adam as well, which I think is the right thing to do for a newsletter. Now, additionally, so that basically is a lead magnet. In a sense, it nurtures users from free to paid, but it is a value add for existing customers, because if I'm now paying and using our B2B, I'm going to be getting a lot of this great insights weekly. But it can also be used as a lead magnet similar to Carta as well. And so if you come over here to our B2B's Academy, basically their blog, they have a lot of great free content. And if you come in here, you will see, I think I already was cookied, but they have a pop-up to subscribe to the newsletter for more of this great content. And then on the rail on the right-hand side, they also have a subscribe call to action. And ultimately what their newsletter is really article style. It's not like a corporate branded newsletter where it's like, oh, here's an update from what we did this month and here's the new hires and whatever. It's no, we're sending you legitimate value that is going to help you with whatever it is you are looking for help. It's going to solve a problem, solve a pain point, whatever. Similar to Carta, they're sending these like really high level or really great, I should say, insights. It's not just a corporate branded newsletter. And so I think what businesses should be doing is actually just sending newsletter style, or excuse me, article style newsletters where you're just sending this information. You're building that trust with that user, and then they become a customer. And then again, similar to Carta, you can then use that customer for insights and data and information that you can then share with your wider audience if they agree and approve, of course. So that's the Flyletter method, basically in a nutshell. I think these two brands are doing it very well. And so I now want to show you basically how to achieve this with Flyletter using our AI newsletter writing platform. Do this basically at scale, high quality, low cost, low time investment, while basically capturing your unique brand voice. So let's just walk through this real quick. So basically, the first stage of the Flyletter method is create, and you have to create consistent on-brand content, newsletter content that actually like has something to say. And I think one thing that where brands run into issues or businesses run into issues is they're just too afraid to take a stance and too afraid to have an opinion and too afraid to sound unique. It just kind of becomes corporate BS if I'm being honest. And so one reason why I like, the Cartas and the RB2Bs of the world is actually it's a human persona. And so of course the human is going to have an opinion and whatnot. And of course, maybe you have to be a little more careful than if you were just like writing for yourself with no business affiliation. But even so, you need to have a strong brand voice and you need to actually be saying something of matter consistently. So the way Flyletter helps you do that is you can create a brand profile. I've created one for myself and then one for Flyletter, although I actually write as Flyletter. I also write on my own Substack, so that's why I have two here like this. And what Flyletter will do is just with a quick 3-step process where all you do is provide 3 writing samples, we'll create an entire brand profile for you that will actually write in your unique brand voice with AI and help you generate on brand, on voice content essentially at scale and certainly consistently. Now, you see here it has your tone, position, and voice mix, key characteristics of what you sound like. You can chat with it, and then you can dive into the full details here. There's 54 dimensions that Flyletter analyzes your brand writing on, and then ultimately comes up with this brand voice profile here. So create this. It's free to do. 3 steps, takes about 2 to 3 minutes. 3 samples is all you need, and then you can basically write in your brand voice. When you're ready to write, there's a few ways to do that. First way Flyletter helps you do this is through actually the suggestions of newsletter topics. So based on your brand profile, based on what we know about your audience, based on the other content sources that you've connected. So one thing I think that's important to note here is if you have other content sources like Adam's YouTube channel, if you have a separate blog that's separate from your newsletter, you can connect those to your brand profile and that will actually power Flyletter's content suggestions, in addition just to your connected newsletter, which obviously is this source of truth. So you can choose from these topic suggestions here, which is very helpful. In addition to just the connected sources, what you can also do is you can upvote and downvote topic suggestions. Upvoted topics will save it to your ideas. Downvoted topics will just remove it from your queue. A new topic suggestion will replace it. And then Flyletter will further optimize those topic suggestions based on what you've upvoted and downvoted. And then within each of these topic suggestions, there's actually a full content brief ready to go. So all you need to do is review, approve the content brief, click write, and it's going to write that newsletter in that article style that I'm suggesting. Similarly, you can save your own ideas. So if you're a founder or someone who just has good ideas, or maybe you have a content team and you just want to capture your ideas and pass them along to them, you can just jot them down here. You can dictate directly to this if you like, save it. And then similar to suggested topics, you can create a content brief here as you develop the idea. Once you think it looks good, you can click write, and that full content brief will essentially be used to write that newsletter. Those are some of the ways to write. You can also just come here and data dump directly to the dashboard, which we'll do now just for this tutorial. Now, one thing that I think is really important as a business brand or business is you got to create a lot of content. And so the question is like, where does all of that content come from? Now, you have the topic suggestions. That's very helpful for your newsletter. But I guarantee you, if you really think about what type of content your customers are already creating or your potential customers are already creating, there's really a wellspring of ideas and almost endless content. Like I said previously, it could be case studies, it could be testimonials. But if you're doing like user interviews, customer phone calls, as long as you get approval. I mean, those transcripts are a great idea. And with Flyletter, what you can do is you can add transcripts directly here by attaching a file. You can also attach transcripts in your ideas. If you have content across other channels that you're looking to repurpose, like if you have a podcast, if you have a YouTube channel, if you have a separate blog, though I do recommend that you combine your blog and your newsletter, which I'll talk about in a sec, you can repurpose content as well. So all you got to do is click over here. If you have a YouTube video, paste it in, it's going to automatically grab that transcript. If you have a podcast episode, RSS feed, you can grab that as well. It'll grab the transcript and let you basically provide any commentary if you want, and then ultimately write. Finally, what you can do is you can just have the AI fully write for you. So this can be just based on a goal that you want for an audience, although you can create your own audience with your brand profile. And then the topics are pulled from both your saved ideas as well as the topic suggestions. So many ways to write content with Flyletter, but ultimately what you're doing is you're writing high quality on brand content in your brand's authentic, or I should say unique voice, because that's the only way that's going to rise above the noise. So why don't we write a newsletter topic now? Because Flyletter is a AI newsletter writing platform, why don't we write an article on the top email and newsletter growth strategies? Now, obviously, this can be as detailed as you want it to be for this tutorial. I'm just going to go, but once you're ready to go, you can write your newsletter. So here we are in the newsletter studio. This is being written. Now, what's happening is this is going through a multi-agent newsletter pipeline. Really, it's your content team in a box. And so it's taking the input that you gave it, and it's going through a strategy agent that puts together the strategy for the article based on the user input. It'll go to a research agent who will do research on the topic to provide cited sources. From there, it goes to an outline agent who does the outline for the newsletter article. It goes to the draft agent who then writes it. After that, a polish agent will take the written draft and go through a round of editing to make sure that is high value, on brand, and is actually like something worth saying. And then it goes to an image agent that will take that full article and then work with an image generation agent to come up with a relevant on-brand featured image. And what you can also do after the newsletter is generated is you can actually generate inline images as well using the same image agent that knows your brand just by using the / command. Other cool thing you can do is you're not stuck here, so you can leave. Don't worry, it's generating in the background. Okay, so we have our finished newsletter here titled The Newsletter Growth Tactics that actually work. I tested them. And then we have that featured image, looks pretty good here. So you can read through it, but basically, as you see, it's a article style newsletter. It has research that's been cited. Looks pretty good. So you can basically read through this, review, and ultimately approve it. Cool thing, what you can do is you can edit directly. So if you just want to kind of edit some stuff, you can add things, remove things, whatever you want to do. What you can also do is just chat with this refine agent on the left-hand side. So you can actually just ask it to make edits here, and it'll make edits for you. It'll help you ideate. Really, it's kind of like your thought partner once the newsletter has been created, and then really works as like your edit agent to help you edit it if you want, or you can edit it manually. You can even search the web and do other things basically as well. Now, one thing I recommend is if you are going to be reviewing and approving this and making edits, to make edits directly in Flyletter, because what Flyletter will do is it'll actually track your edits over time and continue to provide suggestions to improve your brand profile. It'll be more and more aligned with your voice. So instead of like using a Google Doc or a Notion doc, once you get that first draft and then editing it from there, or doing it in your email newsletter platform, I recommend doing it here first and then transferring it over once you have that final draft, because it'll improve your brand profile over time. And now, once you have it done, you can come over here to the social post tab. Now, here's where you create the amplification of your newsletter. So right now, you can create short form posts and long form posts across X, Substack, Threads, or LinkedIn. And then, of course, you can create Twitter style threads for either X or Threads as well. So why don't we create a long form post here first? Okay, so we have our long form social media post. So you see here, it's basically a summary of the newsletter article itself. And then crucially, it provides calls to action below to ultimately subscribe to the newsletter or follow for more. Additionally, you can create Twitter threads or X threads. Now you see here the X thread as well. You can copy each of these over. And then you have your individual posts here. So you get 5 of them for each newsletter. And of course, each of these are just little bite-sized nuggets here pulled from the newsletter itself. So in total, you can create about 5 to 6 different posts across each of your channels just from one newsletter, and that helps you amplify and then ultimately drive people back to your newsletter with interest and then subscribe to your newsletter. Now, in terms of nurturing them and ultimately converting them, that really just requires consistent, great newsletter content over time. And so one really cool thing with Flyletter is you can actually manage your content calendar here, and you can set what's called an auto write schedule. Now, auto write schedule will take your saved ideas as well as your topic suggestions and will literally write your newsletter overnight while you sleep on your set schedule. So let's say you write a newsletter that is distributed on Tuesdays. You might set your writing schedule for Monday that will write at midnight on Monday, your time. And then also when you wake up on Monday, you're going to have a finished newsletter draft ready to review and then ultimately set up to send on Tuesday. If you're ambitious and write twice a week, you can do that, and so on and so forth. And what that will do is it will pull first from your saved ideas. And then if these are consumed, we'll pull from your topic suggestions. But what you can do is you can really plan like a quarter's worth of content really in just like a few minutes to an hour by organizing your ideas here in your saved ideas, setting your writing schedule, and then just reviewing and improving each week as it's being written. So that's a great way to stay on task, on time, on schedule, create that consistent value loop that's going to ultimately convert people into customers. And then once they're customers, leveraging their insights for more topics that you can write about in your newsletter and then saving them to your saved ideas, which then continues the upward cycle.